All right. Hello. I am Gail Green, Hamilton County Republican Party Chairwoman, and I'm here with our public defender. I also consider him a neighbor of mine on Signal Mountain. And we are just going to visit and let the people of Hamilton County get to know you a little bit better, Steve. So the first question is please introduce yourself to the voters of Hamilton County and tell us the name of your elected position and how long you've been serving.
Sure. So Steve Smith, pretty easy name, easy to spell. It's I'm Hamilton County resident. I've been a Hamilton County resident my whole life, except for 3 years in Memphis for law school. We don't have a law school here, so we had to move. We knew we were coming back. Went to Red Bank High School. I went to UTC, studied geology. I worked as a geologist for a little while, and then went back to school, went to law school. I never thought I'd be a lawyer. It just one of those things. It was an opportunity, and my wife actually is the one that suggested it. Been married for 29 years. She's from here, went to Hickson, and we have four children. The youngest are twins. They're 19, a boy and a girl, Duncan and Willa. I've got a 22-year-old who just turned 22 this week, Clara, and then my oldest is 23. Her name's Emma. And so no grandkids yet, but I'm looking forward to that, hopefully sooner rather than later. I'm
And
the
how
public defender. And I became the public defender because I was a prosecutor. And working as a prosecutor in the courts of Hamilton County, it was difficult for me to do my job in that I thought the public defender's office should be better. When you have good lawyers on the other side that make good arguments, you're not wasting your time. And we have justice as a process. No one has all of the facts or all the answers. It all comes together in a courtroom, and then citizens get to determine guilt or innocence, at the trial. And so once I went to law school, I've always been interested in civics and in history and in government. And so I really learned a lot more about it there. And then here, where the rubber meets the road, it's the best job I've ever had. I really enjoy doing it. I've been doing it since 2014. That's when I ran the first time against an
Okay. I was going to
incumbent
say, I think
Democrat.
how long have you been serving in this capacity was part of that question. So,
Yeah, so 2014, and I ran against an incumbent Democrat. She'd been in office something like 28 years, and I might be the last Republican to take over a countywide Democrat seat.
okay.
I think since then it's all pretty much Republicans. But
Well,
it was
as you're
fun.
getting into the second part, because you're actually answering my second question, so I'm going to say it, but let you keep going with with
Sure.
where you're headed. But it was just tell us a little bit about your family and what inspired you to run for office. So you're kind of doing that. So please continue.
So me and some prosecutor buddies were on a backpacking trip in the Smoky Mountains, and we were camping out, and we were sitting around a campfire, and we were all complaining about various things at court, typically the public defenders. And so it kind of dawned on me that there's just not that many people that can or will or would want to do the job that I'm now doing. And um, you know, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I started going to the Pachyderm Club. That's the only thing I knew about Republican politics. I had never been to it before. I started going maybe a year or so before the election was going to happen, maybe a little longer than that, and just started trying to get to know people. I was fairly young. I was 40 years old. Most of all the elected officials at that time were quite a bit older. So I didn't have any natural ties in, but I just thought, I'm just going to show up. And if, that's 99% of most things is just showing up. And so um, I ran. I'm from here. I thought, well, that gives me one advantage. I'm from here. I've lived here my whole life. And I didn't know how big the county was until I had to start campaigning in parts of the county I hadn't really spent that much time. And I grew up in Middle Valley and went to Red Bank. And so I knew all about Hickson and Middle Valley and Soddy Daisy and Sail Creek, and that was kind of the places where I would go. But once you campaign in the entire county, you realize, Georgetown, McDonald, almost. I guess that's right outside the county, but it's way, it goes way on up there. It's a big. So if you got to go from one part of the town to the other part of the town, there's only one bridge. It's 13 miles by the way the crow flies, but an hour's drive. So going from one potluck to one meeting to this meeting, and then it was I was never busier. I'll say that. And my wife was in nursing school at the time.
Wow.
Uh, so we had the four kids and wife in nursing school and me trying to campaign. I knew it was going to take a good bit of time, so I actually quit my job as a prosecutor so that I would be forced to full-time campaign.
Wow.
I cashed in my 401k. We took a chance,
Oh.
and I think, you just kind of sometimes have to put your money where your mouth is. If you're going to complain about things, you need to do something about it, rather than just continue to complain. So I did, and I loved the job. I knew there would be the legal part of the job. I was used to being in court every day. I tried a lot of cases. One thing I campaigned upon, I think, was that, I knew what it was like to put somebody in prison for life, and I know what it's like to keep somebody out of prison for life. And so there's not that many people with experience like that on both sides of the aisle, and I thought that would make me a better public defender. And I knew who all the good lawyers were because I practiced against them. And so when I became the public defender, I really took on the role of administrator. I knew there would be that part too. I'd never done that before, but I had to fire a lot of people and hire a lot of people, and that's and it's worked out pretty well. I feel like a coach.
Well,
We've got a
you're
good,
also, you're really good at this, obviously, because you're actually going into my next question, which was about how many people do you represent? And I know that is a multifaceted question, but also what are the essential duties of your office? So,
sure. So our office is created by an act of the legislature. So before there were public defender offices, if someone couldn't afford a lawyer, the Constitution guarantees the right to a lawyer. Everybody's heard that Miranda warning. The judges would just tap the shoulder of some lawyer at some firm and say, "Hey, we need you to come down here and represent this person." And oftentimes that would be a real estate lawyer or, bankruptcy lawyer
mm,
or a divorce lawyer. And they really wouldn't know what they were doing. As time has gone on and we pass more and more laws and we have more and more crimes and we arrest more and more people, it was obvious to the legislature that they needed a professional public defender's office if they're going to have a professional district attorney's office. And so, yeah, I guess that's the duties. We're appointed clients by the courts. So the judges appoint our office. They tell us who we're going to represent. We don't get to choose that. Sometimes we can ask the court not to appoint us. It's filing a motion, basically saying, please, judge, we have a conflict in this case. Maybe the victim is our secretary's daughter,
mm.
or we already represent a co-defendant in the case, or we've represented the victim. We know all kinds of bad, horrible things about that, and we've got a confidential duty not to tell that. We would have to do that and represent. So we can always ask the court to let us withdraw from a case that they appoint us to. Now, again, even that is up to the court. Sometimes the court says, well, I don't really see that as a conflict. You can keep going, and we do. But the vast majority of times we don't, and we represent folks. Last year, 2024, we represented right at 7,500 clients, um, roughly about 10,000 cases that those 7,500 clients were alleged to have committed. Everything from first degree murder to traffic offenses. So
So, and you oversee an office of, maybe explain that a little bit, kind of
sure, yeah.
how.
So when I got here, we really didn't have enough lawyers in court. We had more staff support, I think, than we really needed. So it was just more of a where do you put your resources? And I
Mhm.
just thought we needed to have more butts in seats in courtrooms.
Yep.
The longer it takes a lawyer to talk to their client or to talk to a victim the longer it takes, the more inconvenient it is. And oftentimes, that's just invites trouble if you can't do something efficiently. And so I expanded the number of lawyers in court, especially Sessions Court. Sessions Court sees the vast majority of cases that come through the court system. And so we started out with 13 lawyers when I got here. We have 24 lawyers now.
Um,
Uh, and so those 24 lawyers handled those 7,500 clients in 2024. It's still an immense amount of work. And our clients aren't always easy to deal with. Sometimes when we go to interview a client, they might still be on a controlled substance while we're trying to interview them.
well,
Or,
can you talk a little bit about what a typical work week might look like for you or one of your lawyers?
Yeah, so it's wholly different for the my assistant public defenders than it is for me. They do what I did when I was assistant district attorney. They're in court every day, all day.
Okay.
I say that they're not in court every day, all day. They're in court every day, but they do come back and prepare for the next day's worth of court. But they don't unlike being a private lawyer, you don't have to market yourself. You don't have to pay taxes, run a business. So a public defender, assistant public defender can handle a bigger caseload than a private lawyer can,
Okay.
just because we have a human resources office and we can, so we provide training, oversight, that kind of thing. So the job for an assistant is go to court. You start out, this is your cases for the day. You keep your own calendar. You plan your own, it's and most of the people, all of the people I've hired are fairly self-motivated. It doesn't take a great deal to manage them. Where we kind of at a sweet spot. I think if we got much bigger, we would probably have to have some more formal management techniques, but I think we're still on the small end. Um, Nashville, Public Defender's Office, hundreds of lawyers. Memphis, Public Defender's Office, probably 1,000 lawyers.
Wow.
So it's different, and so some of the more rural offices in Tennessee might have 3 lawyers or 5 lawyers. So we're kind of in the middle, and it's kind of a sweet spot. We have enough people to be able to cover for each other when somebody wants to go on vacation or they have maternity leave or but we don't have so many that it's impersonal. So it really is a team. I tried to put together. We have 3 teams of lawyers. Each has a team leader. That team leader kind of supervises the day-to-day activities of that team. I try to have like an experienced lawyer for sure on that team and maybe some good workmen like mid-level experienced lawyers and then some young lawyers. Because the young lawyers they're excited and they're eager and they make, it keeps you from being jaded, I think. And everybody likes a little bit to be a little bit of a teacher, I think, sometimes. And so that part of the job is really what my day to day is like. It's just interfacing with all of the people that work here to make sure that the day went well, to make sure that tomorrow's planned well. And there's complaints people make, there's fires you got to put out. So the total office is 31 people. We have investigators and staff members and some things like that, but receptionists. But my days spent at the office, and
So
it's
you're not in the courtroom.
not much. I
Okay.
tried a murder case last month.
Yeah.
I hadn't really tried much since I was a prosecutor, but nobody here really, to be honest, really wanted to do that case. It's a tough case.
Yeah.
And we're told by the court that we represent that person. And so that's, I actually enjoyed doing it again. It was kind of like, I remember doing this. So and you worry a little bit if you hadn't done it in a while, if you still got it, but we did a good job, I think.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, so
That's
I
interesting.
never, yeah, I never thought I would do criminal law. I never thought I would be a lawyer. I
And
wanted to be a
this is the second half of the last question about what a work week looks like. And you can if you want. I don't know the compensation for a public defender, but the second half of the question is, does the compensation cover your expenses? So
sure. It's a public record what we make. It's by
yeah,
statute,
yeah,
and so it's a good salary compared to my dad and my mom. My dad was a carpenter. My mom was a cook. And that salary, I mean, I hate to say it, it's right at 245,000, something like that a year. I manage a lot of lawyers. If I were in the private sector in a firm managing 24 lawyers, I would probably make double what I'm
yeah,
making now.
yeah,
But that's not why I'm doing this job.
yeah,
I knew I wasn't going to get rich doing it. It's the quality of life for this job is really good. I mean, there's the one thing we deal with, I'm probably dealing with it a little more the longer I'm doing it, is there's this idea of secondary trauma where we're exposed to all of the bad things
yeah,
and we see the pictures and we watch the videos and it's as a prosecutor, it's a little easier because you wear the white hat and everybody cheers you on.
yeah,
We don't have a lot of cheerleaders for what we do.
yeah,
But being a prosecutor, I realized how important it is to have good public defenders. And I feel like it's a civic duty.
yeah,
There wasn't anybody else willing or able to step up. And so I did. And I guess I'm doing a decent job. I was unopposed. in 2020, or we have 8-year terms, which is a real nice thing compared to
Yeah.
some folks have to run every 2 years. If we had to do that, we would never be able to do the job.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
and our job's a little bit different. We don't set policy. We're not policymakers. We actually have a job to do.
Yeah.
We're hired to do a specific job. And
Yeah.
so, really what I've done is rather than try to be, an electioneering candidate that you see everywhere with the sign and shaking hands. And I mean, I go to things that I think are important, but more than that, I figure if I'm going to be reelected, I want to be able to argue that I'm the best person for the job and I've done the best job I can do.
Yeah.
And, you can question how I do it and all that. That's great because I am elected and I'm not entitled to a position. But at the same time, just I'm proud of what we do, and I'm proud of my workers here and the folks I consider them friends. I've gotten to know them very well, and anyway, it's a joy to come into work every day. And I don't know
Could
that
you pick one thing that you
say
love the
that.
most about your job? One, is there?
It's the people.
Okay.
It's not just my people. I enjoy the people at the courthouse. I mean, I enjoy talking to the clerks. I enjoy the police officers and the prosecutors. I mean, several of the people that are DAs worked here, and several people that work here were once DAs. So it's like, I think what the public doesn't understand is I think the public thinks that all the lawyers hate each other and we can't get along. And we certainly fight it out every day, but in a professional way.
Hmm.
And then when the day's over, the day's over. We get to go about our lives and our business. And so, if you were actually angry with all those lawyers, that would make it a terrible job. But we have a really good bar association. We have a good bar. I was able to be the bar president last year. That's not usual for a public defender to do that. That's mainly usually it's like a civil lawyer with a bigger civil firm kind of thing. But I was asked it. I figured it again a civic duty. I did it. I enjoyed it. Got to learn a lot more about that kind of law. And it just goes to show that you know most of the people out there are good people. They want to do the good job. They want to and so the best thing I like about my job is dealing with the people I get to deal with. My clients, I like dealing with them. There's a lot of really decent people that have done some horrible things, and most people don't get to talk to them. And really, in your mind, you think you know who they are, but that's your imagination. And we get to sit across the table from them and learn from their experience and really have a greater appreciation for the things that and the benefits and the opportunities that we have because everybody isn't the same. And so I really enjoy that too. Now they don't always like me. They don't always like us.
Yeah.
I'm sure they would much rather hire a $50,000 a year per case, big time lawyer to come in and fight it out and all that. But we do the best we can with the time that we got. If there's anything that we don't do well, it's basically bedside manner. We don't have a lot of time to talk to family members and because we have a client, we represent the client. If the client wants them to know something, they can call their family. So
Yeah.
but we don't have. If you want that, you need a private lawyer, and they can spend as much time as you're willing to pay for. But the results we get are good. I feel like if you were to ask the judges or the bailiffs, I'm not the bailiffs really know. I think if you were to ask them the work product coming out of the office, I think they would say it's good. I
That's
feel good.
awesome. That's
But
interesting. Well, you have done a really good job. You kind of have gotten ahead of me on all of these questions, which is wonderful. But um, the next question was going to be, when are you up for reelection? And you already answered that, 2028,
2030,
or sorry, 2030. Okay.
yeah.
Yes. So 2030. And then the second part of that question is, what do you want Republican voters in Hamilton County to know about you? And I feel like you answered that a little bit, but I would love for you to kind of wrap up with that.
Yeah.
What you would
I
like to
think
leave.
most Republicans, when I ran in 2014, I think what I had to explain to most Republicans, my fellow Republicans, I've always been a Republican, like armchair Republican watching the news. And my dad and mom voted for Reagan and they were Democrats before that, but I was what, 7 years old, in 1980. So, but I've always been in a Republican household, conservative household. We went to the Church of God growing up. Feel like, I have a pretty strong biblically based foundation. But I think what I would want the public to know is you need a Republican public defender because Republicans understand, I think, and value the Constitution more. And I think a lot of the things in the Constitution that we get that protect us are unpopular. You know, sometimes people want to take a person that's committed a crime and string them up on a tree that day. That's what the founders were against. You know, that we have protections. Those protections came at a cost. Goes all the way back to the Magna Carta with King John. It's serious what we do, and I think Republicans need to know that a public defender that's a Republican understands liberty, understands small government, and we're fighting the government. We get paid by the government to fight the government. It's kind of a unique situation, but we do take that seriously. And again, we fight them professionally.
Yeah.
Many of
Well,
my friends,
I
but
love
I
I
tell them when I
love the
think
way
they're
you
making a
said that.
mistake, and they tell me when I think I'm making one. So
Yeah.
that's what I want. And if you had a Democratic public defender, I think you would probably see a different kind of office. I think you would. I think the just the demeanor of the office would be different. I think you'd have a lot more of an activist kind of office with activist lawyers rather than trying to be a good lawyer for their client. Uh, I think you'd see something a little different, and I think you see that in some places around the country. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's it is partisan. I'm not apologizing for that. I think it's a good thing that the people in Tennessee get to elect public defenders and elect district attorneys. Um, and I'm just happy to be here. Can't answer any more questions anybody has. Please,
Yeah, how
come
do they get
see.
in touch with you if they have questions or um I don't know if
Yeah,
people will want to, but if they watch this video and they
sure.
want to reach out to you, what should they do?
Well, there's two things. So if you can imagine, we are a law firm and we represent specific individual people. And so what I found with public defenders offices, other public defenders offices that try to have easy ways to communicate with you, you end up communicating with a whole lot of people that you really don't need to communicate with. That it's easy for somebody to sit on the phone and dial a phone number, right?
Yeah.
Um, if anyone wants to speak to me personally, I am certainly willing to speak to them in person. Call my office number, set up an appointment. I will meet with you. I have a Facebook page. It's a personal page. It's not a public defender page. You can certainly contact me there. I guess that's the best answer. We have an office.
And maybe if they contact the Hamilton County Republican Party and are trying to get a hold of you, maybe I could
Sure,
put them in contact with you if that's okay.
sure, absolutely.
Okay.
I call them up. If you give me their number, I'll certainly call them. I'd hate to give you my cell phone number out on public because it's just
No.
there's just
No,
can't really
we're
do
not
that.
doing that right now, but
Yeah,
I know how to get a hold of you. So I'm glad to know that you're open to that and meeting with people and talking to them. And I've really enjoyed this interview and getting to know you a little bit better. And I really appreciate what you said about your office being a Republican office and why you believe it should be. So I think a lot of people will really appreciate that. Listen, our elected officials in Hamilton County are amazing. We're grateful for you. Thank you for your sacrifice in serving the people. And I hope that this video will give them a little bit of a glimpse into who you are and what you do. So thank you so much for your time, Steve.
thank you, Gail.
All right, have a good one.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.